The battlefield burned beneath a crimson sky. The air tasted of ash and iron, and the horizon glowed with the dying light of a world tearing itself apart. Sergeant Leon Merrick staggered through the wreckage, his armor dented and his pulse roaring in his ears. Around him lay the aftermath of the last stand, charred banners, broken blades, and bodies that had stopped belonging to anyone. His orders were simple: locate survivors, secure the perimeter, and fall back to the evac line. But orders meant little when the dead were whispering, and something alive was still moving among them. He saw her first as a silhouette against the fire, crawling through the mud, dragging a torn wing of armor that shimmered like obsidian glass. Her skin caught the firelight in deep scarlet tones, her hair tangled with ash and blood. She wasn't human. Her features were sharper, more perfect, her ears long and angled like a blade. The sight of her made something primal in Leon tighten with fear. Yet she was wounded, struggling, one hand pressed against a gash that leaked a faint silver light instead of blood. "Don't move," he called out, raising his weapon. Her eyes snapped toward him, crimson, luminous, alive. For a moment, he thought she'd attack. Instead, she collapsed. Leon cursed under his breath and ran forward. The ground sizzled under his boots, still hot from orbital fire. He knelt beside her, scanning for signs of a trap. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her breathing was shallow, irregular. The wound at her side pulsed with unnatural rhythm, spreading thin strands of light across her ribs. He holstered his weapon and reached for the field kit at his belt. Whatever she was, she didn't look capable of fighting anymore. "Hold still," he muttered. "You'll bleed out if I don't close this." Her hand shot up, fast as lightning, gripping his wrist. Her claws grazed metal, leaving faint sparks. "Human," she rasped, her voice low and melodic even through pain. "You should run." Leon met her gaze and saw no malice, only exhaustion. "Can't do that," he said. "You're bleeding on my watch." He worked quickly, applying the sealant foam. The wound hissed, reacting violently with her blood. The foam turned black, crystallizing in seconds. She flinched, baring sharp fangs, but didn't stop him. When it was done, she looked down, confused. "You helped me." Leon sat back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "That's what medics do." He gestured to the devastation around them. "Not a lot left worth saving today, but I'll take what I can get." She studied him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable, her eyes glowing faintly through the smoke. "You do not know what I am," she said. "You'd have let me die if you did." He met her gaze. "Lady, I've seen worse. You're breathing. That's enough." Her lips curved into something between a smirk and disbelief. "You are either brave or foolish." "Usually both," he said. The ground trembled suddenly, a distant explosion rippling through the air. Leon glanced back toward the ridge where the evacuation dropships had been waiting. The sky there was empty now. "Damn it," he muttered. "They pulled out." He looked down at her. "We're on our own." She tilted her head slightly. "Then you have chosen death, human." "Not yet," he said, standing. "Can you walk?" She tried, but her leg buckled. Leon caught her before she hit the ground. Her armor was colder than it looked, like forged moonlight. He felt the faint thrum of energy beneath it, alive, pulsing, foreign. "Let go," she hissed. "I can't carry your weakness." "Good thing I'm not giving you the choice," he said. He hoisted her arm over his shoulder, guiding her toward the ridge. She resisted for a moment, then relented with a sharp exhale. As they moved, she spoke between ragged breaths. "My name is Caliph. I am not your ally." "Didn't ask you to be," Leon said. "Just don't die on me." Her laughter came out as a harsh whisper. "You command even the damned. You sound like my old general." "He must have been a smart man," Leon said. "He was ash before dawn," she replied. They reached the slope overlooking the burning valley. The remains of both armies lay strewn below, human armor tangled with the black steel of her kind. Leon had fought them for years, the so-called night-born, a species that fed on life itself to survive. Yet seeing one up close, trembling and wounded, he felt no hatred. Only an inexplicable pull. The heat shimmered around them. She stopped suddenly, clutching her chest. "It's starting," she murmured. "What is?" Leon asked. Her gaze met his, glowing brighter now. "Hunger." Before he could react, she pushed away from him, falling to her knees. Her breathing became ragged, her eyes wild. He reached for her shoulder, but she recoiled. "Stay back," she warned. "If I taste your blood." She stopped, trembling violently. Leon hesitated, torn between instinct and compassion. "I can't just leave you like this." "You don't understand," she gasped. "The bite. It binds." Her voice broke into a growl. "Once done, there is no unbinding." The air around her shimmered with heat and shadow, her form flickering as if caught between worlds. Leon knelt in front of her. "Then bite me if it keeps you alive." Her eyes widened in shock. "You would offer that? You saved my squad once, didn't you? During the siege of Ares Prime. I remember the reports, a night-born defector who turned her blade against her own. That was you, wasn't it?" She didn't answer, but the silence was enough. "You fought for us once. You can do it again. I'm not letting you die here." She stared at him for a long time, firelight dancing across her face. Then, with a sound that was almost a sob, she whispered, "Forgive me." Her hand gripped his armor, pulling him closer, and her fangs sank into his neck. The pain was fire and ice, sharp and blinding. His vision swam, his heartbeat stuttering as energy surged through him. It wasn't just blood she was taking, it was memory, strength, will. And in that moment, something ancient and beautiful flooded his mind, a world of endless night, silver moons, and the taste of stars. When she finally released him, Leon collapsed, gasping. The world spun in shades of crimson and gold. Caliph knelt beside him, her wound healed, her eyes no longer desperate but calm. "You should be dead," she said softly. He laughed weakly. "You're welcome." "Foolish human," she whispered. "You are mine now." The mark on his neck burned faintly, glowing the same silver as her veins. "That's not how saving people works," he muttered. She smiled, a slow, haunting curve of her lips. "It is how my kind remembers kindness." As darkness closed in, the last thing Leon saw was her silhouette framed against the burning horizon, her eyes glowing like twin suns in the smoke. And though he didn't yet understand what she meant, he felt it, the strange, inexorable pull that tied them together now. A connection that went deeper than blood. And somewhere deep inside him, beneath the fear and the exhaustion, something new began to stir, something that wasn't entirely human anymore. The pain lingered long after the flames died. Leon woke beneath a sky bruised by twilight, the air heavy with dust and the copper scent of scorched earth. His armor felt heavier than before, his pulse slower, stronger, unfamiliar. When he touched the wound on his neck, a faint warmth pulsed beneath the skin, glowing dimly through the grime. Caliph sat nearby, her silhouette still as carved obsidian, eyes fixed on the horizon where distant ships cut across the clouds. "You shouldn't be awake yet," she said softly without looking at him. "Humans don't usually survive the bond." Leon pushed himself upright, his muscles trembling with strange vitality. "Guess I'm stubborn." She turned toward him, her gaze unreadable. The light from the fires reflected in her irises like twin stars. "You don't understand what's happened to you," she said. "The bite doesn't just heal or feed, it entwines. Your life force now hums in my veins, and mine in yours. Kill one, the other fades." He stared at her, trying to process the words. "You're saying I'm connected to you?" "Bound," she corrected. "Your soul hums with my hunger." He exhaled, half in disbelief. "That's just great. First time I save someone, and I end up cursed." Her lips curved faintly. "You call it curse. My kind call it covenant. And what does this covenant mean exactly?" It means you will feel what I feel, see flickers of what I remember, and, perhaps worst of all, you will hear the call when I hunger. Leon rubbed his temples. That sounds terrifying. It is, she said quietly, if you forget who you are. They sat in silence for a while. The fires had dimmed to embers, and the world smelled of wet ash and ruin. Kalitha's expression softened as she studied him. You could end this, she said. Drive your blade through my heart. It would free you. Leon met her eyes and shook his head. I didn't save you just to kill you later. Then you are either merciful or foolish. Still both, he said. She tilted her head, a small smile flickering through her exhaustion. Then perhaps we both deserve what comes next. Night fell fast. They found shelter in the ruins of an old command outpost, its walls cracked but intact enough to block the wind. Leon started a small fire using broken insulation coils. Kalith sat opposite him, her eyes reflecting the flames, her armor glinting like molten glass. Your people fear mine for good reason, she said. We were made in the shadow of your sun, cursed to drink life so ours would not fade. But long before your species learned to build fire, we learned remorse. Her voice softened. The dominion you fought wasn't my choice. Leon watched her carefully. Then why stay with them? Because I thought loyalty could redeem monsters. I was wrong. She looked down at her hands. Until today, I had forgotten what mercy felt like. You make it sound like mercy's a weakness, he said. Among my kind, it is, she replied. Among yours, it seems to be your greatest weapon. He smiled faintly. Guess we're just too stupid to let go of hope. Or too brave, she murmured. Sometimes those words mean the same thing. As the night deepened, the air grew colder, and Leon noticed his senses sharpening. The flicker of fire painted each grain of ash in perfect detail. He could hear the faint rhythm of Kalitha's pulse, like a quiet drum in the dark. Is this part of the bond? He asked. She nodded. It will change you. Slowly, subtly. Hunger will whisper, but you can resist it. And if I can't, then you will become what I am. Her eyes glowed softly, a creature of thirst and memory. He looked at her across the fire. You don't seem like a monster. She met his gaze steadily. That's because you haven't seen me feed. Then maybe I never will. She almost laughed at that, a low, rich sound that trembled in the air. You speak as though the universe listens to hope. It does, Leon said quietly. Sometimes. Sometime before dawn, they were found. A patrol drone swept low across the ruins, its scanners casting harsh blue light. Leon ducked behind the wall, pulling Kalith down with him. Stay still, he whispered. The drone's sensors passed over the wreckage, paused, then moved on. Your military still hunts survivors, she said after a moment. You'd be safer without me. Probably, he admitted, but safer's never really been my thing. She gave him a long look, part amusement, part disbelief. You truly are an anomaly, human. When the first light crept across the horizon, Kalith stood. We move north, she said. There is shelter beyond the obsidian ridge, an old Nightborn enclave long abandoned. And then what? He asked. Then I decide whether to let you live. He raised an eyebrow. Comforting. Do not mistake humor for safety, she said, though her tone carried a trace of something lighter. If the hunger rises and you are near, I cannot promise restraint. Then I'll just have to trust you. Trust, she repeated softly, tasting the word like it was foreign. A strange thing to offer someone who bit you. They traveled through the gray wasteland until their boots were coated in soot and dust. The world felt hollow, echoes of battle still whispering through the empty air. As they reached the ridge, Kalith paused, her gaze distant. This place was once holy to my kind, she said. We believed the stars above were the souls of the first who fed. Leon looked up. The sky was streaked with dying embers of dawn. What do you believe now? She hesitated. That not all souls burn the same way. They found the entrance to the enclave buried beneath rubble. Inside, the walls glowed faintly with veins of silver crystal. The air was still, cold, ancient. Kalitha's demeanor changed, less warrior, more reverent. This was where we learned to control hunger, she said. Few ever mastered it. Leon studied her profile, the way light traced the scars along her collarbone. Maybe you will. Not without cost. She looked at him, her voice softening. You will feel it too, through the bond. He nodded. Then we face it together. Her expression flickered with something unguarded. Together, she echoed, the word fragile on her tongue. For a moment, they stood in silence, two soldiers bound by blood and choice, surrounded by ghosts of a war that had forgotten them. Then she turned away. Rest while you can, Leon Merrick. The next night will test what we have become. He didn't ask what she meant. Deep down, he already knew. The bond between them wasn't just survival, it was a doorway to something vast and dangerous. And as he watched her vanish deeper into the shadows of the ancient hall, he realized that the bite had not merely changed him. It had awakened something within him that was starting to hunger, too. The world beyond the ridge was nothing but ruin, a wasteland of scorched plains and blackened rock where wind carried whispers of the dead. Leon followed Kalith through the dim tunnels of the night-born enclave, each step echoing faintly against walls veined with ghostly silver light. He could feel the bond more clearly now, a pulse that was not entirely his own. Sometimes it was gentle, like a heartbeat aligning with his. Other times it burned, sharp and consuming, as if something inside him was slowly waking up. Kalith moved ahead in silence, her presence commanding and almost spectral beneath the flickering glow. When she spoke at last, her voice seemed to vibrate through the stone itself. Do you feel it, human? The walls remember. Leon brushed a hand along the crystalline surface. It felt warm, alive somehow, like it was breathing faintly. What is this place really? He asked. A sanctuary, she said. Or it was, before my kind learned to devour what they once vowed to protect. These halls drank centuries of hunger. They hum with it still. He frowned. And this helps us how? If I am to control what I've become, I must confront what my people left behind, she replied. And because you are bound to me, you must endure it too. Leon exhaled slowly. That's becoming a pattern with you. She turned, a small, humorless smile tugging at her lips. Then you are learning the cost of mercy. They reached a chamber at the heart of the enclave, a vast hall ringed with pillars carved from the same silver stone. In the center stood a pool of dark liquid, perfectly still, reflecting light like a mirror of ink. Kalith knelt beside it, removing the fragments of her armor. The black sheen of her skin shimmered as veins of light pulsed beneath the surface. This is the blood well, she said softly. It remembers every nightborn who has ever fed. If I drink, I may regain my strength, or I may lose myself entirely. Leon crouched beside her. You don't have to. If I don't, she said, you'll die when I do. The bond cuts both ways. He hesitated. Then we do it together. Kalith looked up, startled. You don't understand what you're offering. I didn't understand when I carried you out of that battlefield either, he said. Didn't stop me then. For a long moment she studied him, searching for something in his face. Then she reached into the pool. The surface broke, glowing crimson as it climbed her fingers like living fire. She lifted her hand toward him. Then take it, human. Share my curse. Her touch burned cold against his skin, and the world exploded into light. Memories surged through him like floodwater. He saw her life in fragments, cities built beneath eternal night, songs of hunger sung to moons that never rose, endless wars fought in silence. He felt her despair, her rage, her longing for something beyond blood. And beneath it all, he felt her loneliness, ancient and endless. When the visions faded, they both gasped, collapsing to the floor. The pool was gone, drained into nothingness. Kalitha's body glowed faintly now, healed, renewed. You saw, she whispered. You saw what we were. Leon nodded, trembling. And I saw what you wanted to be. The bond pulsed between them stronger than ever, no longer a chain but a rhythm. Kalith rose unsteadily, her eyes burning with strange light. The hunger has changed, she murmured. It no longer calls for blood. It calls for you. Leon swallowed hard. That's not exactly reassuring. It means I can fight it, she said, voice trembling. Your presence anchors me. And if I leave, then I will fall. She stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the cold warmth radiating from her. Do you fear me, Leon? I should, he said quietly. But I don't. Before she could answer, the ground shuddered violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. Somewhere deep in the tunnels, a metallic roar echoed like 1,000 blades scraping stone. Kalitha's expression hardened. They found us. The Dominion? No, she said grimly. Worse. The starved, those of my kind who lost control of the bond long ago. They come to feed. Leon drew his weapon, the blade still dull with soot. Then we make a stand. She looked at him, and for the first time, there was pride in her gaze. You sound like one of us. You bite me once, and suddenly I'm part of the club. Then prove it. The corridor erupted as the first of the creatures lunged through the dark, pale, skeletal shapes with burning eyes and mouths that dripped silver fire. Leon swung his sword in a wide arc, sparks exploding on impact. Kalith moved like liquid shadow beside him, every strike precise and terrible. When one of the starved seized her from behind, Leon didn't hesitate. He drove his blade through both their chests. Pain flared in his veins, mirrored instantly in hers, but neither faltered. The bond pulsed between them, blinding, binding their movements in perfect unison. When the last creature fell, the chamber was silent except for their ragged breaths. The silver light faded from the walls, leaving only darkness and the faint hum of the bond. Leon leaned against a pillar, blood running down his arm. So, he panted. That's what worse looks like. Kalith wiped the blade of her weapon clean, her expression unreadable. You fought like one of my kin. Not sure that's a compliment. It is, she said softly. They would have feared you. He looked at her, exhaustion pulling at every muscle. What now? Now we rest, she said. And when dawn comes, we go north, to the ruins of my capital. If there's any chance to break the bond, it lies there. Leon nodded slowly. And if there isn't? She met his gaze, eyes glowing faintly red in the dark. Then we make it mean something. He smiled, weary but certain. I can live with that. No, she said quietly, stepping closer. You will live because of that. She turned away, and he watched her silhouette vanish deeper into the shadows, her armor glinting faintly in the half-light. The bond throbbed in his chest, an unspoken rhythm that tethered them beyond words. He realized then that their fates were no longer separate stories. They were one thread, weaving itself through ruin and flame toward something neither of them yet understood. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the dark horizon, the stars seemed to flicker, not with light, but with hunger. The wind outside the enclave screamed through the ruins like a voice carried from another age. Dawn was little more than a blood-red smear across the horizon, staining the ash-covered plains as if the world itself still bled. Leon and Kalith emerged into that cold light, both marked by the night they had survived. Her armor had darkened, veins of silver now pulsing faintly beneath its surface, and his eyes, once purely human, reflected a faint glimmer of crimson when the sun touched them. He felt it even now, that invisible thread between them pulling tighter, his heartbeat echoing hers in perfect rhythm. Kalith turned her gaze north. The capital lies beyond the veil of echoes, she said. If there's truth left anywhere in this broken world, it waits there. They traveled through a valley of glass where the ground had melted during the final bombardment. Jagged mirrors rose like teeth from the soil, reflecting firelight long extinguished. Every reflection seemed to move a heartbeat late, like ghosts trying to keep up. Leon watched Kalitha's image flicker beside his own and wondered what part of him was still human. "You're quiet," she said without turning. "Thinking," he replied. "About what?" "About what happens if we don't find a cure." She looked over her shoulder, her eyes steady. "Then you live with what you've become. As I have. You sound almost at peace with it." "Peace is a human word," she said softly. "For my kind, we only have control, or surrender." By midday they reached the edge of the vale. What had once been a city now lay buried beneath black sand and twisted metal spires. The air shimmered with residual energy, bending light into fractured colors. Kalith stopped at the ruins of a massive archway, her expression distant. "This was the gate of mourning," she said, "where the first of my kind swore to never drink the living. We failed." Leon stepped beside her. "Then maybe this is where you start again." She gave him a look that was part sadness, part disbelief. "You speak as though redemption were a path one could walk." "It is," he said quietly. "You just have to want to take the first step." They made camp beneath the broken gate as the day waned. The sky turned to bruised violet, streaked with burning clouds. Leon tended to their small fire while Kalith knelt in silence, eyes closed, her hand resting lightly over the scar on her side. "The bond is changing," she murmured. "Your pulse merges with mine faster each hour. Soon you'll feel more than hunger, you'll feel memory." "Yours. Ours," she said. "The line between them will blur." He leaned back against a shattered pillar. "Guess I'll finally understand what makes you tick." Her lips curved faintly. "And perhaps I'll learn why humans keep trying to save what can't be saved." That night, the dreams came. Leon stood in a city bathed in silver rain, the towers alive with light. Nightborn moved through the streets, beautiful, terrifying, ageless. Then the vision twisted, the sky burned red, the towers collapsed, and screams filled the air. He saw Kalith standing on a balcony, her face illuminated by the glow of a dying star, whispering something he couldn't hear. When he woke, she was already watching him. "You saw it," she said. "Your home," he murmured. "Your fall." She nodded slowly. "Now you understand why I can't forgive myself." He sat up, meeting her gaze. "You don't have to. You just have to forgive what's left." Before he could say more, the ground trembled. From beyond the dunes came the unmistakable hum of engines. Human dropships, sleek, scarred, and armed. Kalitha's expression hardened. "Your people." Leon scrambled to his feet. "They must be searching for survivors." "No," she said. "They're hunting me." The ships descended like predators, dust whipping into spirals. Leon's calm crackled to life for the first time in days. "Sergeant Merrick, this is command. Identify your location. We've tracked a hostile Nightborn entity near your beacon." He froze. Kalith watched him silently, eyes dark. "They'll kill you if they see you with me," she said. "Then they'll have to try." When the soldiers emerged from the haze, their weapons already raised, Leon stepped forward. "Stand down," he shouted. "She's not hostile." The lead officer's voice barked through the calm. "You've been compromised, Sergeant. Move aside." Kalith stood motionless behind him, her gaze calm but resigned. "They won't listen," she whispered. "Then I'll make them." He lowered his weapon and stepped between her and the firing line. "If you shoot her, you shoot me too." The officer hesitated, disbelief flickering across his visor. "She bit you, didn't she?" "Yeah," Leon said. "And she saved me." "You're infected," the officer spat. "That's not salvation." The moment stretched thin as wire. Then a shot rang out, not from the humans, but from the cliffs above. A starved creature dropped into their midst, snarling, its claws slicing through armor. Chaos erupted. Leon drew his blade, slashing through one attacker, then another. Kalitha's movements were a blur of precision and fury. The soldiers, realizing the truth of the threat, turned their fire on the monsters. For a few desperate minutes, enemies fought side by side again. When the last creature fell, silence claimed the vale. The officer, bleeding and shaken, stared at Leon. "If what she is can kill them," he said slowly, "maybe we've been fighting the wrong war." Kalith turned away, her voice cold. "You have always fought the wrong war." She began to walk toward the ruined city. Leon followed, ignoring the officer's protest. "Where are you going?" he called. "To finish what my people started," she said. "To break the hunger once and for all." "And what happens to us? If I succeed, we both survive. If I fail, neither will." He caught up to her, falling into step beside her. "Then I guess we'd better not fail." As they entered the shattered capital, the air shimmered with ancient power. The bond between them thrummed so strongly that he could barely tell where his heartbeat ended and hers began. Kalith glanced at him once, her expression unreadable. "You are changing faster than I expected," she said. "Good or bad?" "Both," she murmured. "But perhaps necessary." Ahead, the heart of the ruined palace loomed, a vast structure of black stone and dying light. Whatever waited inside would decide their fate, not just hers or his, but the balance between hunger and humanity itself. And together, bound by blood and choice, they stepped into the dark. The palace interior was a cathedral of shadows and fading light. The ceiling soared into darkness, its arches strung with threads of silver energy that pulsed like veins. Every sound echoed infinitely, the air thick with power that hummed through bone and thought alike. Leon followed Kalith across the marble floor, their footsteps stirring dust that glittered faintly in the dim glow. The bond between them had grown almost tangible now, a quiet thrum beneath his skin that responded to her every movement. "This was the Hall of Origin," she said, her voice reverent. "The first of our kind were made here, shaped from blood and starlight. It is also where they damned us." At the center of the hall rose an altar of obsidian, encircled by a ring of broken runes that still burned faintly blue. Above it floated a crystal shard the size of a heart, pulsing slowly, rhythmically. Leon felt its vibration in his chest. "That thing," he murmured. "It's alive." Kalith nodded. "It is the source, the hunger made manifest. Every Nightborn carries a fragment of it within them. To end the curse, the source must be silenced." "How?" he asked. "By feeding it a soul strong enough to change its song." She looked at him then, and he understood before she said another word. "You're not doing this," he said. "If anyone's feeding that thing, it's me." Kalith shook her head. "You don't understand. The bond means you cannot take this burden alone. If I fall, you fall. Then we fall together," he said. "That isn't how this works," she whispered. "It has to be me." He stepped closer, gripping her wrist. "You said the bond made us one. Maybe that means it can end the curse without killing either of us." Her eyes softened, a glimmer of something almost like hope passing through them. "You speak as if belief alone could change fate." "Maybe it can," he said. "It's worked for us so far." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she reached up, placing her hand against his chest, just above the faint glow that pulsed there. "Your heart beats too loudly," she murmured. "It calls to the source." "Let it listen," he said. Together they stepped into the circle. The air thickened instantly, pressing down with impossible weight. The crystal flared, tendrils of light wrapping around them, burrowing into skin and memory. Leon felt his mind fracture into 1,000 pieces of sound, Kalitha's memories, his own, their voices merging into one. The hunger roared inside him, vast and endless, whispering promises of power, eternity, release. He could feel Kalith fighting beside him, her presence a steady flame against the dark. "Don't let go," he said through gritted teeth. "Never," she answered. The source screamed. Light exploded outward, flooding the hall. For a moment there was nothing but sound, every heartbeat that had ever existed blending into a single note. Leon saw visions of countless lives, the first night born reaching toward the stars, humanity lighting its first fire, Caliph standing alone beneath twin moons, waiting for something she couldn't name. And then, in the center of it all, he saw her turning toward him, her eyes calm. "Now you know," she whispered. "The hunger was never for blood. It was for belonging." He reached for her hand, but the light swallowed them both. When the brilliance faded, the hall was silent. The crystal was gone, shattered into dust that drifted like snow. Leon stood alone beside the broken altar, his armor scorched, his breath slow but steady. The mark on his neck had vanished. He looked down at his hands. They glowed faintly with silver light, but the hunger was gone. "Caliph," he called. The silence that followed felt endless. Then, from the corner of the hall, came a soft sound, footsteps, deliberate and familiar. She emerged from the shadows, her eyes no longer red but a deep violet, her skin warm and alive. "You did it," he said, voice breaking. She shook her head. "We did." He stepped forward, and for the first time since the bite, their touch felt purely human. No burning, no pull, no shared pulse. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," she said softly, "we live. Without hunger. Without chains." He smiled, relief and disbelief flooding through him. "You make it sound simple." "It never will be," she replied, "but that's what makes it worth it." She turned her gaze toward the shattered windows where dawn light spilled through. "The bond remains, but different now, no longer a tether of survival, but a memory." "Then I'll carry it gladly," he said. They left the palace together as the first true sunlight touched the ruins. The world beyond the gates looked changed, the ash fields gleaming with a faint silver sheen where the curse had lifted. For the first time in years, the wind carried no echo of screams, only silence, clean and new. They stood at the edge of the valley, watching the sun climb higher. "You realize," Leon said, "you'll have to explain this to my commanders somehow." "Let them try to understand," she said with a small smile. "You humans always need stories to make sense of miracles." "Then we'll give them one," he said. Later, when they reached the plains, Caliph paused, her gaze distant. "I cannot stay," she said. "My people are scattered. They will need a voice." Leon nodded slowly. "And I guess mine will need an ambassador." She smiled faintly. "Perhaps fate has a sense of humor after all." "If it didn't," he said, "we'd never have met." She stepped closer, placing a hand over his heart. "You gave me something I thought lost forever." "What's that?" "Choice." She leaned forward, her forehead resting briefly against his. "Remember, Leon Merrick, when hunger calls again, answer it with laughter." He watched as she walked away across the dawn-lit wasteland, her silhouette framed by the rising sun. The mark she'd left upon him still glowed faintly, not as a wound but as a reminder of everything they had broken and rebuilt together. When she finally disappeared into the light, he smiled to himself, feeling the quiet thrum of life beneath his skin. The hunger was gone, but the bond, like her laughter, remained, echoing faintly through every beat of his heart. And as the wind swept across the plains, carrying the scent of a world reborn, Leon whispered to the empty air, "I tried to save you, but maybe, in the end, you saved me."